James Harden struggling again. Been a rough start to the season for him. 2 of 8 from deep yesterday. Turned the ball over 8 times. That is 8 more times than he would have liked, I'm sure. He's not getting to the free throw line as often as we've seen in previous seasons either. Just 1 free throw yesterday. Head coach Steve Nash was asked after the loss how the rule change is forcing Harden to change. Take a listen to this.
I feel like he's unfairly become the poster boy of not calling these fouls. But some of them are definitely fouls still. But they're just so alert and aware, and he's the poster child of these new decisions that they're still. I get it. There's a line, but some of them are still fouls.
But I'm not the type to complain about it. You know what I mean? I just ask every official. If they see a foul, just call the foul. Sometimes I feel like, coming into a game, it's already predetermined, or it's already have that stigma of, getting foul calls. But I just ask for officials to just call what they see.
It's neither here nor there, but that coat looked very cozy. Hey, Nick, should Nets fans be worried about Harden struggling to adapt to the NBA's new rules? It feels like he is struggling to do it.
Well, let's be clear about what Brooklyn's been through 3 games. Kevin Durant is playing like he's the best player in basketball. He's averaging 33 a night, 10 rebounds, 6 assists on an insane 37 PER. Patty Mills, big offseason acquisition, is shooting a nice, tidy 70% from 3. And despite that, they're 1-2, and if not for a meltdown by Philly in the final 5 minutes of that game, they'd be 0-3. So what's going on here? What's going on here is James Harden is in real life living out that meme of the guy who's like, oh my God, I'm sowing, it's so much fun. And then when it's time to reap what you've sown, it sucks. The reason James Harden is the poster boy for this rule is because James Harden was the reason for this rule. Trae Young to a lesser extent, Steph Curry a little bit, but really James Harden. The league said, we are letting, the players have gotten so smart, they have figured out how to exploit the rules as written, and they are changing the way the game is supposed to be played. So now one must adjust. And Broussard, it's going to be very interesting to see if Harden can. Because James Harden, Apex Harden, the 3 years in Houston, when he won 3 straight scoring titles, he averaged an unprecedented 23 combined three-point attempts and free throw attempts a game. 12 and 11 a game. It's why his scoring was so off the charts. Last year with Brooklyn, in a slightly different role, it was 7 three-point attempts, 7 free throw attempts. It is now, very early, 7 three-point attempts, 3 free throw attempts. If James Harden is not getting calls, he goes from an MVP candidate to a simple all-star. Thus far this season, he hasn't even been an all-star, but that's what he goes to. That's a problem when you now just have a big 2 in Brooklyn.
Well, look, if you're right, then yeah, it's a serious problem. And let's just keep it real. If you're right and James Harden is now just your average run-of-the-mill perennial all-star, then they're not going to make the finals. All right? But yeah. I'm not ready to say that after 3 games, Nick. I mean, this is a guy that you have said in the past is the best player ever never to win a ring.
Not to win a ring.
This is a guy that all of us have said is one of the top handful of scorers and one-on-one players ever. And now after 3 games, I'm just going to say, he's Zach LaVine. No, I'm not ready to go there. He is still a great three-point shooter. He is still a great finisher. And I think what's happened, Nick, is a few things. One, over the course of the last several years, he's developed a habit of when he goes to the hole, looking to create contact, looking for the contact, and expecting the foul call. All he has to do is adjust to now, let me go looking to finish or make a play, a pass, a lob, or something like that. But let me go not expecting a foul call or bailout, whatever you want to call it, but to finish. And he's strong enough where he can finish. I also think, and you heard him talk about this after the game, he talked about his lack of confidence. I'm not there yet as far as my confidence, which shocked me for an all-time great player. But what he was talking about is the confidence from the injury. Last year with the hamstring was the first major injury of his career. His career. And so if you look at how he played when he came back against Milwaukee with the bad hammy, he was the same way, tentative, not, as aggressive. And it's been that way at the start of this season. So I think he just has to get full confidence in that hamstring, make the mental adjustment of finishing rather than looking for the foul call, and be more aggressive. They need him to get 25 plus a night now that Kyrie's not there, Wilds. And I think he will do it.
Yeah, I think he'll eventually figure it out. Just go to the hole and look to score rather than look to draw a foul. But Steve Nash needs to spare me with the saying that he's the poster child for this. Steve Nash, two-time MVP, said to Trae Young when he was backing up, said, "That's not basketball." That is the defining quote from a former great player that was helped push this rule through. So the idea that Steve Nash is now complaining, Nick, about the rule that he pushed through and targeted Trae Young specifically when he had James Harden on his team, that's what you get. The other thing that's interesting to me, Nick, is that this is going to have a snowball effect on James Harden. Because when his three's not going down, what does he do? Put your head down, do his little scoop, swing through move, get a foul, get to the line, watch the ball go in, and then your three-point game will get back on track. So if he loses that, it sort of compounds. So I think he'll figure it out. He's too smart and too brilliant of a basketball player not to, but it is an issue, and I think it's going to take longer than everybody thinks.
Well, and he doesn't have to get a lot worse because of this for it to totally screw the Nets. The Nets planned, because they don't have a great roster. We can argue about this all year. We'll see how it turns out. They don't have a great roster. And by the way, again, it's early, but Blake Griffin, 3 games, they gave him yesterday off to do the draft. Blake Griffin, Detroit fans are like, oh, I recognize that Blake Griffin, not the guy who we saw play for the Nets last year. That's a concern. And Patty Mills isn't going to shoot 70% from 3 the rest of the year. And Durant will cool off to an extent. A 37 PR is totally unsustainable. But Broussard, the path is do what the Lakers did 2 years ago. Have 2 top 5, top 6 players, lean on them, and then it doesn't matter how bad the rest of the roster is, or I shouldn't say bad, mismatch the rest of the roster is, you can still win the title. If Harden is not a top 6 guy and instead he's a top 16 guy or a top 20 guy, they are screwed. And you're right that I've said he's the best player ever not to win a ring. I have absolutely said that, and I think he has the resume. Like Barkley's in the discussion, Elgin Baylor, but they're all in the same room together. But if the NBA all of a sudden, Broussard, changed the three-pointer rules and said, guess what? Now they're worth 4. Well, then Steph Curry would become, without question, the best player in basketball. And if they changed the three-pointer rules and they said, actually, they're all worth 2 and dunks are worth 5. Well, then all of a sudden, Joel Embiid's the best player in basketball. Those are the extremes, but rule changes change the hierarchy. And when you have the player in league history who relies on a whistle more than anyone else ever, would you agree with that? That Harden's game is more whistle reliant than any great player we've ever seen? I guess maybe one could argue Shaq in a weird way because he always got hammered. I don't know. But it's on the short list, right? This rule is going to affect him. And I don't know that he's ready to change. I don't know if when you've done something one way for 8 years in a row, are you able to change?
Yeah, he's able. He'd be on that short list. But the three-point rule and the foul call rule, those are, you mentioned it, that's an extreme compared to something that's not as extreme. If he can't adjust to not getting foul calls, then he's not what we thought he was. Simple as that. I mean, you can adjust to that. All right, you can